Welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. Would you look at that? New Smyrna Beach, Florida. Lovely winter day there. Northeast part of the state, Sunshine State. And if you head just a couple miles north, you go 95 or up the intercoastal there, up the road. You get between Daytona Beach and St. Augustine. Here's why we're talking about it here on the Hill. Come Tuesday, the political waves start rolling through. You've heard a lot about Michael Waltz, right? The National Security Advisor who spearheaded that group chat among the national security team and unknowingly a reporter. Well, his congressional seat that he gave up to get into that position is now up for grabs on Tuesday in a special election. How about that for some timing? Back with me now, Chris Stirewalt, host of the Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, the man behind the numbers, Scott Tranter, data science director at DDHQ. Gentlemen, hello.
Hello.
Thanks for being here with me. So we're talking about a race in the middle of March. Why are we doing it? Especially when you look at this, right? Mike Waltz won that seat by 33 points back in November. But, and it's a big one right now, there was a poll that was just commissioned there in that part of the state, and it right now has the Democratic challenger in this case, look at that, within the margin of error by some 5 points. What's going on here, Chris? How did it go from possibly 33 points to margin of error type stuff?
Well, obviously they think that he's J.D. Vance, and it's messing up. It's obviously messing up the numbers down there.
The picture is going to be on the ballot? Is it? No.
How many caveats should we list here? We should list. This is one poll.
Right.
Congressional districts are extraordinarily hard to poll, low name identification.
Waltz is not on the ballot himself.
There's a bajillion reasons to be dismissive of this.
Okay.
But
okay.
When we put it in context of the other news this week, which is there was a state Senate race in Pennsylvania in a district that Donald Trump carried by 15 or so, and the Democrats flipped that district for the first time in 50 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And we care about this stuff because I expect Randy Fine to be fine. I expect.
I do too. Yeah.
I expect he'll get there. He was slow to raise money. He's not a great candidate. Has no J.D. Vance beard,
right?
And I expect that he will get there. But the fact that it's competitive is the way that we gauge over time, taken as aggregate, how much intensity Democrats have going into next year's.
So speaking of intensity, the challenger Josh Wheel, close to $10 million raised, well ahead of Randy Fine, the Republican. You've been telling me for a few days now, Blake, keep your eye on this, keep your eye on this, keep your eye on this. And here we are, and again, this was the seat that Mike Waltz gave up. The thinking at the time was, safe district.
Yeah, safe district. One other data point to go with this poll, Florida's great. They tell us how many ballots have been returned, how many Democrats have voted already, how many Republicans. If they stop counting today, which they are not, and there's multiple more days, the race would essentially be tied because just as many Democrats have returned ballots as Republicans. Now, as Chris said, we don't think this is going to be how it ends.
Right.
But, you know, if you want to get in with the election nerds, we're trying to figure out, is Randy Fine going to win by more than 10 or less than 10? Either way, it's not going to be by the 30 points that Donald Trump won.
Did you just hear him say Florida is great? Could you imagine us talking about that after 2000?
Well, no, but Florida, there's a bunch of states that do a really good job. Florida, Georgia.
Right.
When you have trouble, sometimes you have good solutions.
So there were 3 seats, right? Matt Gaetz, who did not become the Attorney General, Elise Stefanik, her confirmation's coming up to be the UN ambassador, and Waltz. Stefanik won by like 25 or something like that back in November. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, if that's in gone from that to single digits potentially, what about that race in New York, Chris, potentially?
So, and even before this is the reason she is not yet the United Nations ambassador for the United States of America, because they can't afford to lose that seat. So she's been designated, but she's not getting the actual appointment because then she leaves the House and the Republicans need every vote that they can get. That is definitely a district that Democrats can win in a competitive year. If they have a good year, that would be kablooey.
Especially given the demographics of the districts, a little bit more working class. There was some manufacturing there. We just had some announcement of tariffs.
Yeah.
We'll see how this all plays out. But as Chris said, this one, if this district that we're talking about on Tuesday is less than a 10-point margin, that'll be all we're talking about.
Too late for Waltz to go back? Can he just go back and say, like, mistakes were made, I'm going back to
I wonder what that group chat looks like on the side, right? Yeah.
Man behind the numbers, Scott Tranter, Chris Stirewalt, host of the Hill Sunday. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and make sure you go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider.
And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.